Okay, so now we're going to export this and paint a texture to it. So I'm going to come here, polygons, UV snapshot. I'll select where I want to put this, and this is going to be saved to Documents, Maya, Projects, Default Images. Okay, so I'm going to just walk you through some of these options here, size X and size Y. Right, usually you want to keep this square to keep a consistent texture. Keep the aspect ratio. Color, you can change the color that the UVs appear. I'm going to keep that at black because we're going to have colored UVs and black is going to show up over them. Image format, you'll notice I changed this to PNG. UV range normal 0 to 1, that means that we're in this first quadrant here. I'm going to hit browse. I'm going to call this zombie head. And let's just take a look one more time. Documents, Maya, Projects, Default Images. Okay. Save this. Now we want to click the object and then hit OK. If you don't go to object mode and click the object, unless you have the object already selected, in object mode, it's not going to export those UVs. I'm going to open Photoshop. Now, if you don't have Photoshop, I highly recommend getting it. You don't necessarily have to pay for it to get it legally. Right? Photoshop CS2 does 90% of the things that you're going to need Photoshop to do, and it's legally free from Adobe. Right? Now, granted, you're not going to have all the fancy, the newer and fancier stuff that CS6 comes with, but this is something you could practice with and then, work your way up from there. So right now, I'm using Adobe Photoshop CS2, and it's done everything I needed to do so far, especially just for simple UV painting. What I'm now going to do is go to File, Open, and I will now navigate to my project. So I'm going to jump in here, and I'm actually going to, not desktop, I want to go to Documents. I'll go to Libraries, Documents. Now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go to Maya, Projects, Default, and then Images. You'll notice my zombie head PNG. I'm going to open that up. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to drag it underneath the UVs, right, so that we could paint underneath them. Right? You'll notice that the brush I have, right, I have it set to the max diameter. And I'm going to set this color here. I want to set it to a light green. And I'll just drop in that color. Okay. I'm going to drop the opacity a little bit. Start to paint in more of this color. Right, so for our base coat, this could be something. We could also lower the opacity a little bit. Right, make a new layer here. Just start to paint in more and more green. Okay, now one more layer for this specific part. A little bit of a darker green. Lower the brush size. I'm hitting the left curly brace on my keyboard. Make this bigger. And right now I'm just trying to get a feel for what type of green I like. Because now that we have these three layers, we could experiment between darker and lighter just by messing around with this opacity here. Right? We also don't have to keep things even. We could go on these different sides here. Paint in a little bit extra highlight or shadow. And now I'm going to make another layer. Now I'm going to go to select my brush here, and I'm going to drop down to Special Effects Brushes and say OK. I want this liquid one here, because now what we're going to do, we're going to hop in here, go to a more lime green, hit OK. Now this is our brush that's going to display liquid. So if I just click and drag, you'll see that this drops down a sort of liquid-like substance. I want to make the brush a little bit bigger. Go right over this mouth here. Actually, oops. Control-Alt-Z will undo. Control-Z will just keep going back and forth between undo and redo. And I'm gonna drop in some liquid here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in Control plus, because I really want to. So now here's the part where we need to start getting a little bit precise. This is our mouth ring here, and I want the zombie's mouth to be covered in goo as though he was eating some guts. Right? So he's eating some zombie guts, so we have this goo around the mouth there. Now, to make it even more realistic, what we could do is we could show a little bit on the neck here too, right? Because he was like leaning over and stuff. So we'll just drop in some slight effects there. And now we could even come back in, make this a little darker, make a new layer, drop in a little more, right? So some different colors there. Okay, so now this is what we're working with here. And now in the next tutorial, I'll show you how to reapply this to our object after we clean up these UVs a bit more.